This is ABC7 News at 7, your Suncoast News. We're here for you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Alan Cohn, and welcome to the new hour-long ABC7 at 7. It is primary day. Today, we learn which Republican will face off against which Democrat this November. The polls closed moments ago, and for the next hour, we'll watch the numbers come in together. Nearly 2 million Floridians cast their ballots during early voting. Election officials are expecting this year's turnout to be a record setter. In Sarasota County, nearly 10,000 people voted early, as well as almost 5,000 people in Manatee County. We should start seeing vote totals in just a few moments, and there are a number of hotly contested races on the Suncoast and around the state. Our roundtable will be all over it in just a moment, but right now let's take a look at the top 7 stories making news at 7. And we begin with the weather. Bad weather. A tropical system has the west coast of Florida in its sights, and Bob Harrigan has more on what is going on. Bob.
Thanks, Alan. Yes, a good thing is that most of the rain fell this evening as opposed to throughout the day when people were voting, so there wasn't a big factor as far as keeping people away from the polls. But the system has changed a little bit now. We've got a little bit of a different forecast path and possibly intensity with this storm. It could become a hurricane before it makes landfall prior to looks like Thursday night. Near the Panhandle or the Big Bend area of Florida. Let's go to the maps to show you what's going on right now real quickly, then we'll get more on this a little bit later in this newscast. But the visible satellite imagery is showing a couple of interesting things. The mid-level circulation with this system right into the southeast of the center, it appears, and it looks like we will see some intensification overnight. Now, as far as the system is concerned, you can see we had an explosion of storms right here off the western tip of Cuba earlier today, and then that kind of faded away. And now another area is starting to flare up once again. But look at all of the rain and moisture to the east of the center, which covers all the way over to the state of Florida and throughout Cuba. And that's all going to be kind of working its way in our general direction. So don't focus on the center with this storm so much as to the right of the center is where a lot of the rain is going to fall. And that puts us right in the path of that. You can see the center expected to make landfall sometime after Thursday, 2 o'clock, more than likely around 6 o'clock in the evening. And it could possibly be a hurricane by then, too. We'll see how it plays out. Some reliable models are indicating that it will be a Category 1 hurricane when it makes landfall in the Big Bend area. That's the reason why the National Hurricane Center has elected to call it a hurricane watch now. The area in red that you see from Pasco County northward all the way up to Apalachicola, and the area in yellow, a tropical storm watch. And these could change over to warnings as early as tomorrow midday. So we'll watch that. As the tropical storm force winds, the probability thereof for us have lowered a little bit. They're at 30% now, Alan. They were at 40% earlier today, so that's a little bit of a better sign. But it's not the wind that we're worried about. We're worried about the rainfall, and that could be excessive. We could see 10 inches in some isolated areas, which will cause some flooding problems.
All right, thanks a lot, Bob. We are keeping an eye on flood-prone areas the next few days, including Minnesota Key, where severe beach erosion has put many homes at risk of being overtaken by the Gulf. For years, the shoreline has continued to shrink on the Key, exposing the underside of many homes. Sarasota County mandates residents can only use small sandbags to protect their properties, and some residents say the county needs to step up in its assistance.
I've talked to the DEP. They have solutions. Unfortunately, the county does not really see permanent solutions as an alternative.
Sarasota County says it is conducting a coastal assessment, saying information from this assessment will help inform discussions about possible shoreline projects in the future. In preparations for this week's severe weather, Manatee County is distributing sandbags. Residents can get as many as 10 bags from the Manatee Public Works Department. If you have not gotten them yet, you can still get some tomorrow, beginning at 10 a.m. at one of several locations, including Buffalo Creek Park in Palmetto, G.T. Bray Park in Bradenton, and the Rubonia Community Center. Distribution will continue until 6 p.m. We now know the possible location of the Suncoast's first medical marijuana dispensary. Tallahassee company Trulieve is buying a property on 14th Street West in Bradenton near Manatee Memorial Hospital. The company is still working through the permitting process. An opening date has not been announced yet. Trulieve says it seeks locations near medical facilities for the convenience of customers. When the location opens in Bradenton, it will be Trulieve's 5th dispensary in Florida. So this is not supposed to happen. In Longboat Key today, someone at a Democratic Party table outside Precinct 201 allegedly gave a marked ballot out to a voter. The supervisor of elections says it is perfectly legal for parties and campaigns to solicit voters as long as they are 150 feet from the entrance. The precinct committee woman says the Longboat Key Democratic Club was passing out the ballots, which is well within its rights, but one of the candidates is crying foul.
The people that were at the table were members of the club, and they can do whatever they want.
The Democratic Party is supposed to be neutral, and they're not supposed to be telling people who to vote for.
Sarasota's Democratic Party says the incident goes against its policies. And some confusion today at a polling place in Northport. Candidates and volunteers had their signs removed from the Mullins Community Center by city code enforcement. Those putting up and waving the signs throughout say that they were allowed as long as they are 100 feet from the polling location, but a 2015 resolution designated the area as off limits for campaign signs. And just as soon as the signs were removed, new ones went right back up in the same area. She helped bring home the gold, and now she is moving to the Suncoast. The longtime coach of Olympic gymnast Simone Biles is making a move right here to the Suncoast. Amy Boorman was welcomed to Bradenton today. She will serve as the executive director of women's gymnastics for EVO Athletics. Boorman was the head coach of the U.S. women's team at the Rio Games, which won a record 9 medals. And still to come, primary day. Here the polls are closed and we are tracking the results. We are going to take a look at how things were going at the polls. That story when we come back.
What does it mean when New South Window says Factory Direct?
It means we have a factory.
It means we eliminate the middleman.
It means you get an award-winning, energy-efficient window at factory direct pricing.
I'm consumer investigator Dale Cardwell. Replacing your windows will not just beautify your home, but save you big bucks on your energy bills. I've done the research. I've seen the factory. New South Window is my hands-down choice.
New South Window. We manufacture, we install, we guarantee. Call now.
This is important news for women diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Talcum powder may have caused your ovarian cancer. According to many studies, long-term use of talcum powder in products such as baby powder or shower-to-shower for feminine hygiene is linked directly to ovarian cancer. If you are an ovarian cancer victim or if a loved one died from ovarian cancer after using talcum powder, call the law offices of Davis & Crump at the number below right now to find out if you are eligible for a cash award and medical expenses. Call now.
A message from the Pulaski Law Firm. For decades, many Americans working in the trades were exposed to environmental hazards without their knowledge. While the dangers of one such airborne threat, asbestos, have long been known, efforts were made to hide the risks from the public. The result? Thousands of cases of asbestos-induced mesothelioma. Those in the trades may have been harmed by hundreds of companies who produced asbestos-laden products. The U.S. Bankruptcy Court has established asbestos trusts with $30 billion in initial funding. You may be entitled to financial compensation without ever going to court. If you or someone you know has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, get the best care available. Then call us.
Call 800-279-1837.
For nearly 2 decades, we've been fighting for those harmed by asbestos. Act now. Call for a free consultation and see how we can help. Mesothelioma. Don't fight it alone.
The official Suncoast Storm team at ABC7. We're here for you.
Tomorrow at 4 on Suncoast View.
Do you know how to save a life? I'm Stephanie Roberts. On Suncoast View, we learn about hands-only CPR with the American Heart Association, all to get ready for their annual Suncoast Heart Walk. Our development expert is back with the scoop on a new Whole Foods battle, plus bayfront and beach access concerns, plus pregnancy product must-haves, and Chef Judy has the best pasta dishes on the Suncoast.
Tomorrow at 4 on Suncoast View.
They have been duking it out for months. Republicans versus Republicans, Democrats versus Democrats. It has been contentious and sometimes downright nasty. Tonight we find out who will face who in November And as Bobeth Yates also reports, we will also find out if the people who are counting the votes are all set for this November's election.
Throughout the Suncoast, officials say things went smoothly.
All the polls opened this morning at 7 o'clock, and we've had no issues, and so it's worked out pretty good.
Manatee County's Supervisor of Election, Mike Bennett, says all the preparation for this year's primary election has paid off. So far, there has been no major issues reported at precinct locations throughout the Suncoast, and voter turnout for this year's primary election is surpassing previous years.
And we mailed out about 60,000, a little over 60,000 vote-by-mail ballots. We've got about 50% of those, close to 60% of those back, so that'll kind of drive the turnout. In general, right now, we're at about a 23% turnout if you combine everything.
Sarasota County election officials are also experiencing similar increases, expecting about 25% voter turnout for this year's primary election. That number is up when compared to 22% in 2014 and just 16% voter turnout in 2012. And voters we spoke to say the issues are driving their interests.
I want my vote regarding the hotel at the north end, which I personally am against because of the traffic flow.
Another issue on this year's ballot is the constitutional amendment to give a property tax break to promote solar energy. But it isn't just the issues driving voters. Many say they're also concerned with who will be holding elected office.
That's extremely important. I think the way that we vote in local elections has an effect, especially in our own communities.
The country needs help, and we really need to do our best to cast our vote.
And while voters make their voices heard, Bennett says Tuesday's primary is the best and final practice for November's presidential election.
It's a warm-up for our poll workers, our new equipment, the iPads, everything that we're doing. And so it really is. It's a great opportunity for us to test that out.
Bobeth Yates, ABC7, your Suncoast News.
And in the moment, our roundtable.
Hurricane season is here, and Suncoast weather can go from this to this in seconds. So when severe weather threatens, count on the official Suncoast Storm Team at ABC7.
We're armed with the most advanced weather technology so that we can bring you storm warnings faster and with more detail than ever before.
Plus, we focus on the Suncoast and track storms right down to your neighborhood.
On air, online, and on your mobile device. Turn to the official Suncoast Storm Team at ABC7. We're here for you. At ABC7, it's all about being here for you. ABC7 News at 7 with award-winning investigative journalist Alan Cohn. In-depth reporting and debate on important issues and stories in our community with a featured topic of the day and a live roundtable discussion with community leaders and newsmakers. Plus a quick recap of the day's top stories and weather. ABC7 News at 7, weeknights. Now more than ever, we're here for you, Suncoast.
Hi, I'm Joan London, and if you're worried about your parent or a loved one living alone like I was, and you want reliable senior care information, then call A Place for Mom, the nation's largest senior living referral service. You'll get free information on assisted living, Alzheimer's care, nursing homes, even important financial information.
They had obviously researched every place, not just given me names. They found me a place for what she could afford, and it was magnificent.
We're now very confident that she's safe, and they just helped every step of the way, and I can't thank them enough.
So if you're struggling to find reliable senior living information, call A Place for Mom. This is a free service, and you can trust them to help you.
Call right now to get your free Senior Care Compass ebook. Find out about the 5 best-kept secrets on financing senior care and assisted living.
Call now, 800-290-0352. 800-290-0352.
They took that stress and that tension when I was particularly feeling very bad after that nasty car accident, and it was such a relief to know that I didn't have to bear that burden alone, that I had help.
Our goal is to not just get a satisfactory settlement on their case. We want them up on their feet, happy again. They've gotten their life back.
Election day is here for the August primary, and we're keeping track of the results. And joining us on our roundtable tonight is Rita Ferrandino, the treasurer of the Sarasota County Democratic Party, and Christian Ziegler, the Republican State Committeeman for Sarasota County. This is exciting.
It is.
I mean, we've been talking about this for months. Let's start with the U.S. Senate race on the Republican side. You know, Marco Rubio jumps into the race in June after his failed presidential bid, going up against Manatee's own Carlos Baruf, who dumped millions of dollars of his own money into this race. Christian, it does not look like it will pay off for him.
No, it's a tough race, and I think everyone's saying all signs point to Marco winning this race. And winning handedly. But, you know, Carlos is a great guy. And really, if you look at it, before Marco got in the race, he was the front runner and he had really a good path to victory. But, you know, Marco getting in the race changes things, and his name ID and his background, and everyone in Florida knows him. He ran for president, ran for Senate, was House Speaker. So that made it very difficult to overcome. The
Democrats were very excited about this race from the beginning because you had a number of, you know, Carlos Baruf aside, a number of Republicans who were not well known statewide going up against Patrick Murphy, who is obviously well funded, endorsed by the president, the vice president, and they were very enthusiastic about that. But now it seems like a horse race, and the latest polls that I have seen of Murphy versus Rubio, Murphy is trailing by 5 to 8 points.
Well, I think Democrats were nationally very interested in this race because with Marco Rubio running for president, it was going to be an open seat. And in an open seat with a field of relative unknowns on the Republican side, Patrick Murphy really had a strong chance. So that's not what happened. And tonight we're going to see if it's going to be Alan Grayson or Patrick Murphy.
And Alan Grayson is a interesting figure because, look, he is very smart, Harvard educated. He was loved by the progressive community across the nation, and that helped him raise a lot of money early on. But between some of the questions about ethics and his personal life really took a toll on him. In fact, a number of progressive organizations took back their endorsements. The last poll I saw of that race is he was trailing Murphy by about 8 points.
And he remarried a woman the day before qualifying, and she got in the race as Mrs. Grayson to run in his old congressional seat. So it's just been a crazy primary season.
So the question there is, whoever comes out of that primary, assuming it's Patrick Murphy, the congressman from the West Palm Beach area, at this stage, do they have any chance against Marco Rubio, Christian?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you look at Marco Rubio, he's been a U.S. Senator, he ran for president. Obviously, his background, his Cuban background, and that plays well down in Southeast Florida. Marco is a dynamic speaker. He's a dynamic individual. And I don't think when you look at Patrick Murphy, there's a lot of questions about his business background and was he honest with his resume? Was he honest with his positions? And unfortunately, on the Democratic side, we haven't really had a primary because everyone bailed on Grayson. So that has not been fully exposed and discussed. And I think when voters see that, they're going to be shocked and they're going to be disappointed.
But Rubio was trounced by Trump in the presidential primary, and a lot of things came home to roost. There's been a lot of resentment around Florida that it appears that for the last 6 years, Rubio had his sights on the White House and was not keeping in contact, doing the business at home. And a lot of people were wondering, you know, whether that's going to come home and affect him in the Senate race.
There's a lot of very strong public footage that we Democrats have to use against Marco Rubio, so I would not count out Patrick Murphy or Alan Grayson. And I think that it is going to be a very dynamic Senate race this year.
There's another federal race that we should be talking about, and that is which Democrat will win the nomination to go up against Vern Buchanan. We could talk about whether they have a realistic shot at doing that at night, But, you know, you have a newcomer, Brent King, who is a commercial airline pilot. I have met him. I have moderated the debate between him and Jan Schneider. He's an intelligent man, neither of which have raised a whole lot of money, and Jan has run for this office, let's say, numerous times.
So I think that both of those candidates, Brent King and Jan Schneider are running because they really feel that Vern should not get a pass, that he should be held accountable for his votes, and that's just part of making good, strong democracies. And so we applaud that they're both running. We'll see who wins tonight, but Vern does need to have somebody running against him to be able to keep him honest and to make sure that people know what his voting record really is.
Well, that begs the question, why haven't the Democrats targeted this seat? I mean, they did going back to, what, 2006?
We had a very competitive race when Keith Fitzgerald ran against him. And I think that we certainly saw when Christine Jennings ran against Vern Buchanan that it was a very, very competitive race, as you know, it was 350 votes difference.
Those were close races.
They were close races. They were close races.
So you look at, that was at the beginning, and what Vern has done a great job, and again, I worked for Vern Buchanan up in Congress. I know him very well. He's a good friend. He's done a great job of representing the district. So he's been honest with voters. He's been out there. He's communicated with voters. He does town halls throughout the district. He's one of the hardest working members of Congress that you'll ever find on the Hill. And it's interesting because I was a young guy. I was in my mid-20s, and I had a difficult time keeping up with the guy. I mean, he's up 7 in the morning, he's on his bike, and he's working until 3 in the morning, sometimes casting votes. And I think when you look at the Democrats, the reason why, back to your question, you know, why hasn't anyone challenged him? When you look at the Democratic Party here at the local level, they really don't have a bench. They don't have a minor leagues. They don't have players in the game. And you look at that with this primary election in their ballot, they just don't have many contested primaries, and they usually don't even run people in the general election.
We have about 30 seconds left, but I want to ask, given that in the presidential year, Democratic turnout is going to be at its peak, even in districts like this, why is Vern Buchanan so far ahead?
Well, I think that we'll see. We've got 2 candidates running, and we'll see who comes out of that tonight, and we'll see what happens.
If you do a good job in Congress, it pays off, and that's what he's been doing.
Okay. We'll take a break right now, but when we come back, we will have this evening's expert interview.
Thanks to my volunteer, I am a better reader.
Thanks to my volunteer, math seems simple now.
Thanks to my volunteer, I discovered new career goals.
I'm a volunteer for Sarasota County Schools, so I know I can make a difference. And you can too. Give an hour, change a life.
Have you ever wondered what it's like to save a life? Find out by donating platelets at Suncoast Blood Bank.
I'm Haley Wilgus, ABC7. Platelets aid in the clotting process and are vital in the treatment of cancer and surgical patients, trauma victims, and critically ill newborns. It's tough to keep enough on the shelves because they only last 5 days. To donate, call this number or visit scbb.org and you can help save a life.
ABC7 congratulates Suncoast Blood Bank on 65 years of serving our community.
On Saturday, September 10th, thousands will walk together at Nathan Benderson Park for the 2016 Suncoast Heart Walk. I'm Scott Dennis, ABC7. Join us for an inspiring, fun-filled day as we raise funds, celebrate survivors, and honor loved ones lost. The Suncoast Heart Walk is the American Heart Association's premier event to fight cardiovascular diseases. The 2016 Suncoast Heart Walk, September 10th. And for more information, visit suncoastheartwalk.org and take the first steps towards living a heart-healthy life.
Is your mop a dirty, disgusting mess? You need the Hurricane 360 Spin Mop System, the only mop and bucket that spins the dirt away. A system that cleans practically anything and everything with super absorbent microfiber. Dip it in the washer side and the mess releases into the bucket. Then place it in the dryer side and push on the pedal. You get a clean mop pad that's practically dry and ready for more. And your hands will never again touch a dirty, disgusting mop. The heads are washable and reusable. Get the Hurricane 360 Spin Mop System for just 2 payments of $19.99. You'll also get a Sticky Buddy, the reusable sticky roller that picks up pet hair and lint and washes clean in seconds. You can take advantage of our 2-for-1 Pick It Up special and get a second spin mop set. Just pay additional shipping and fee. And we'll upgrade you to free priority handling. So don't wait. Order now.
Call 1-800-394-1524 to get your Hurricane Spin Mop double offer. So hurry and call 1-800-394-1524. Call now.
We heard from him briefly in Bobeth's report, but on this election day, we wanted to share what makes Manatee's Supervisor of Elections, Mike Bennett, is saying about the primary, and that's why he is the feature tonight on tonight's expert interview.
In general, right now, we're at about a 23% turnout if you combine everything. We've had, a little over 9,000 people show up at the polls so far. It's a typical primary day. We don't normally expect too much. You got to remember when they started doing presidential preference primary, for a lot of people that took the interest out of it. I'm sure that the general election this year will be up in the 80, 85%, 90% number, but right now that's about where we're at. We're seeing a lot more interest in some of the local races, like school board races, than we've ever seen in the past, and there's a lot more outside money coming into those. What's driving that money is it's pretty hard to put your finger on. There's all kinds of accusations and all that, but those seem to actually be the most controversial. Up here in Manatee County, we don't have any of the state races that are really controversial like they do down in Sarasota, so we're kind of comfortable with that up here. But we've certainly got a county commission race that could be a little shaky, but it's the school board races that seem to be attracting the most attention. We didn't change any polling sites from the presidential preference primary until today, and we will not change any between now and November unless something just jumps out that we've missed it. We don't think we have. We will be happy to have you set up for vote by mail. It's a lot easier. You know, a lot of people question the vote by mail, what I'm doing behind you in the mail room. I'm processing the vote by mail ballots right now. The very first numbers you see tonight will be all of the vote by mail ballots. People say, well, you don't even count them. Actually, we count them first. When we see the numbers will be the same time the public will see the numbers. And so, you know, you hear different stories. You hear people claiming that, you know, they know what's going on. Trust me, after you've run 30 or 40,000 ballots, you don't know what's going on. And after you've run 30,000 ballots, you really don't care. You just want somebody to win big. We don't want any revotes.
All right, the first race of the evening is being called. The Associated Press is calling Carolyn Zucker over Teresa Mast in the contentious school board race. And in fact, both those candidates were here for a debate just a couple of days ago. It got pretty nasty, but apparently Zucker is winning that race. We will have more results from Sarasota and Manatee County with our roundtable when we come back.
Tomorrow at 5 on ABC7's Good Morning Suncoast.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Vargas.
And I'm Don Brennan. Now that school is back in session, so are fall sports. But how many sports should your kid participate in?
Tomorrow on Good Morning Suncoast, we'll show you why the American Academy of Pediatrics says one sport may not be enough. John?
Our weather begins to deteriorate as our tropical cyclone lifts northward.
Tomorrow at 5 on ABC7's Good Morning Suncoast. We're here for you.
Attention, this is an important message for anyone who had an IVC filter placed to prevent blood clots from traveling to their heart or lungs. Did your IVC filter move, break, or cause organ damage? The FDA warns that IVC filters may cause serious complications, such as heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, even death. If you or a loved one suffered serious complications, call IVC Filter Helpline now. You may be entitled to compensation. IVC filters are designed to prevent blood clots. If your IVC filter moved or broke and you suffered heart or lung damage, internal bleeding, or if a loved one died as a result, call IVC Filter Helpline today. Our network of experienced attorneys is ready to fight for you. You'll pay nothing unless there's a recovery in your favor. Call today for a free confidential consultation. Don't fight this alone. Call IVC Filter Helpline now.
Please call 800-897-6764. That is 800-897-6764.
A message from the Pulaski Law Firm. For decades, many Americans working in the trades were exposed to environmental hazards without their knowledge. While the dangers of one such airborne threat, asbestos, have long been known, efforts were made to hide the risks from the public. The result? Thousands of cases of asbestos-induced mesothelioma. Those in the trades may have been harmed by hundreds of companies who produced asbestos-laden products. The U.S. Bankruptcy Court has established asbestos trusts with $30 billion in initial funding. You may be entitled to financial compensation without ever going to court. If you or someone you know has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, get the best care available. Then call us.
Call 800-279-1837.
For nearly 2 decades, we've been fighting for those harmed by asbestos. Act now. Call for a free consultation and see how we can help. Mesothelioma. Don't fight it alone.
And welcome back to the new hour-long version of ABC 7 at 7. If you are just joining us, it is primary day, and we are tracking the results live with our expert roundtable. We are joined by Rita Ferrandino, the treasurer of the Sarasota County Democratic Party, Christian Ziegler, Republican State Committee man for Sarasota County, and Keith Fitzgerald, the professor of political science at New College of Florida. And when we take a look at some results that are coming in right now, I believe we have two races that are in. That is the School Board District 2. As you can see, Caroline Zucker looks like a fairly large lead over Teresa Mast. It's been called by the Associated Press. And why don't we start right there, because this was a really contentious race, and the Republicans are saying that Zucker was a real Democrat, and that Mast was the real Republican. What do you all make of that race?
At the end of the day, Sarasota County is very proud of their schools. The schools work really well, and Caroline Zucker has supported our public schools for a very long time. And I think at the end of the day, it didn't matter if she was a Democrat or a Republican. It's about how she's been doing her job. And clearly the people of Sarasota County believe that she did a good job, and they're sending her back.
Christian, the Republicans were working very hard for Teresa Mast.
No, actually, the Republican Party was on the sidelines in this race, and the reason why is because our internal rules do not allow us to get involved.
But she had a lot of support.
She had a lot of Republican support, absolutely, or Teresa Mast did, because she is a conservative. And what you had is Caroline Zucker. She was supported and endorsed by the local Democratic Party. She was backed by a local PAC that had a bunch of dark money that the liberals always complain about. They spent over $50,000 in dark money on that. The teachers union was behind her, and she had all the Democratic support. She just needed a little bit of the Republican support. And the Republican Party was kind of on the sidelines. So I think it's something that our chairman has even been on record saying that we need to evaluate, because it's not fair for the Republican parties to be on the sidelines when Democratic parties going heavy.
I think the truth is there are no such things anymore as nonpartisan races. Is that correct, Keith?
Yeah, I think that's true. Maybe, unfortunately, the case. And I think that there was a major effort on the part of people who are high up in the Republican Party in this race. But I also think that Rita had it right from the outset. People don't want school board elections to be partisan. They want them to be about the schools, and the people in this community generally have strong support.
All nonpartisan does is keep voters uninformed. And, you know, when you look at someone's party affiliation, it usually clearly explains where they're at on the issues. So that's why people really do oppose nonpartisan races.
First of all, let's not start this thing by interrupting each other. I was in the middle of a sentence when you broke in there, okay? I mean, let's just have some civility.
I'm just making sure I have time, because I have a Democratic State Committee man, and I have a former Democratic chairman. I just want to make sure I have a word in. I thought you were finished.
Well, you're interrupting me about interrupting me.
Let's
just
keep
be
it going.
polite.
Is there something you wanted to finish up there?
Yeah, so I think people in this community generally support the principle of public schools, and there was a real difference on a lot of issues. Let me just say, from an objective standpoint, that name recognition for an incumbent is a major factor in the election, and Caroline Zucker has been around for a long time.
I do want to move on to the state Senate race, because this is the hottest race that has been around here, and the results that are coming in right now are still early, but it's really interesting because you have a number of Republican all-stars that are in there, including Greg Steube. But it appears right now Nora Patterson is out in the lead in terms of early results. Of course, you also have Doug Holder, and it was really the polls, at least in the last couple of weeks, showed that it was a real battle between Steube and Holder, but Nora Patterson is out with the lead. Is that just because it's early?
It's early. You know, they really started going after Nora Patterson on TV towards the end. So, you know, we still have to wait for the precinct polling to come in. But I think that you're right. I mean, this was a race that was between Steube, Holder going for the conservative vote. You have Nora, who was pretty well funded, going for a little bit more of the moderate vote. With Ray Pilon there, Rick Levine, an outsider, didn't really have many resources. But that one, I think that she's only up by about 200 votes. So I think Election Day polling, when that comes in, we need to wait and see what that actually shows. But it has been a bloody Republican primary, and this is one of those races that you watch, and rather than the results, you're more excited to kind of get it over with and move forward.
And that's because in the fall, we're going to have a general election, and whoever comes out of this is going to be bloodied, and that will be to the Democrats' advantage. Well,
Let's talk about the Democratic side of that race, because we have Frank Alcock, the political science professor at New College, and also in his spare time, ABC7's political analyst, against Frank Cirillo, who just graduated college last spring, which is terrific. But in the world of politics, nothing is predictable. The early results seem to indicate that Frank Alcock has a lead. Was there any polling in this race, Keith, or is it one of those things that remains a mystery until primary day?
There was some polling, and actually some of the polling I saw actually had the Patterson race and Stubbe races very, very close between the two of those. So Holder fell back in some of that polling in the last rounds. Alcock had a fairly substantial lead. Looks like it's going to hold up. I would guess he may run just a little bit ahead of the election. But this looks about what the polling said it would. This was a very low information election because neither side did a whole bunch of mass communication.
And it's also not targeted by the Florida Democratic Party, at least yet.
Not yet. People will take a look after the election.
And that leads to a really interesting question, because talking to Frank Alcock, he believes that he has a better chance of winning this race if you have a nominee from the Republican side like Greg Stubbe or Doug Holder, because there's a bigger difference between conservative and Democrat than if you had a Nora Patterson, who is a moderate Republican.
Well, I think absolutely they're going to be able to draw deep contrasts if it's Frank Alcock against Stubbe or Holder. There's no question. And I think that when people look at what they stand for, Frank Alcock in a general election is going to do very well.
Sarasota County is a Republican county. The Republican Party is fully confident that whoever ends up being the Republican nominee is going to win. The Democratic Party getting involved, that's not going to make any difference. Really, the local Democratic Party, the state Democratic Party, is totally incompetent when it comes to running races, and you can see that by the cabinet being fully Republican, and they failed to take a majority in the state House or state Senate.
But it's a presidential year. It's a presidential year, and there's a different electorate during presidential years.
I was going to say that. You do have maximum Democratic turnout in the presidential year. Frank Alcock is a pretty well-known figure around this area.
Locally, the Republicans, when they lost a county commission race, a state Senate race, it's been a long time.
We have new lines.
It's not going to happen. The Republican Party, right after this primary, we're going to all get in our headquarters, we're going to work, and we're going to make sure that our nominee wins.
All right, let's talk about one more race before we get to the break, and that is Steve Vernon against Joe Gruters, who we all know and like. But Christian, you're good friends with Joe Gruters. Yeah. He was pretty nervous about this primary.
He was, and I actually know Steve Vernon very well as well. He's a good guy. But this is like the state Senate primary, just ready to get it over with. But you look at Joe's race, for example, I think Steve Vernon, groups supporting him have spent over $2,000 is what I've read. They've sent out 11 negative mail pieces in the past 8 days. So that is tough to go up against. I fully expect, Joe has a long history in this area, both in Sarasota and Manatee County, so he should play well. I think everyone's kind of pointing to him as the favorite. But again, we're going to have to wait for the results, because that one is a race that I expect to be very close.
And they really beat up Joe Gruters there at the end. The last 2 weeks, they were pretty brutal on Joe Gruters. And, they really threw this whole issue of he's party chair, he's the Trump major supporter and running for office. And so we'll see what happens.
All right, why don't we show some results on the screen of these races as they're coming in. We're going to start with the Sarasota County Commission. Let's see, is it up there? If so, I really don't see it quite yet. All right, there we go. Mike Moran looks like overwhelmingly over Frank Cicero. Any surprises there?
No, Mike Moran's been running for a long time. He has a lot of support here locally. He raised a lot of funds, so no surprise in that race.
Okay. Let's just talk about the Joe Gruters race just a little bit longer, because it would have been, pretty difficult for the chairperson of the Sarasota Republican Party, the vice chair of the state Republican Party, and the chairman of the Trump campaign to lose in the Republican primary. But this is one of those years that is not predictable. And what's interesting, Keith, is that Steve Vernon was casting Joe Gruters as the insider to his outsider, and Joe is involved in the campaign, in the Trump campaign, which the entire mantra is that Trump is the outsider.
Yeah, it's a little bit mind-bending to think of somebody in charge of the Trump campaign as being an insider. I think the definition of that term doesn't make a whole lot of sense. That's definitely true, and I think Vernon's credibility, from what I understand, was largely because of his experience in the Tea Party. Again, hard to characterize Joe Gruters as some mainstream kind of person.
All right, we'll have to take a break there. And when we return, we'll have a look at our weather forecast, which is going to get nasty.
Hurricane season is here. Are you prepared? ABC7 has the information you need. Access our special Surviving a Hurricane now. Learn how to prepare a readiness plan and survival kit. Know your evacuation route. Be prepared, Suncoast, when severe weather threatens. Access our special on our ABC7 app and all our live streaming platforms.
Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Roku.
This is a special health alert for seniors suffering with joint pain. If you have Medicare insurance, you may qualify for high-quality support braces at little or no cost.
I'm thrilled with my knee braces.
Now, there is a simple and proven solution for seniors to get out of pain with state-of-the-art support braces.
I barely feel any pain at all.
Braces for your knees and back, as well as your shoulders and ankles, too.
I'm so happy with the quality of these braces.
Call now, and you could qualify for a pain-relieving brace at little or no cost.
I can play ball again, and it doesn't hurt.
And because of my Medicare coverage, it costs me next to nothing.
So call now.
And because I have this red, white, and blue Medicare card, my braces have cost me just about nothing.
It's true. You may get a knee, back, shoulder, and ankle brace at little or no cost.
They qualified me for 2 knee braces and a back brace.
If you have knee or back pain, give them a call. They can help.
1-800-476-8967. 1-800-476-8967.
They're coming from Tampa, Fort Myers, even Orlando. They're coming from everywhere for the Sarasota Ford Promise. We promise we're more than a dealership. We're a destination with a movie theater, massage room, aquarium, cafe, and more. We promise to give you top dollar for your trade, even if you don't buy from us. And if you do, we promise you the best deal. Bring us any competitor's ad and we'll beat it by at least $1,000. That's why they're coming from everywhere to Sarasota Ford, where 41 meets 301. SarasotaFord.com.
I'm your spokesperson. This is an important message for anyone who took the prescription drug Xarelto or Pradaxa and had a serious bleeding event. If you or a loved one took Xarelto or Pradaxa and suffered from a serious bleeding event,
call 800-220-8268 immediately.
Xarelto and Pradaxa have been linked to serious internal bleeding, stroke, and death.
Call 800-220-8268 immediately.
You may be entitled to compensation. Call now for a free consultation.
Our roundtable discussion continues in just a minute, but right now let's get a check on our forecast of the weather with ABC7 Chief Meteorologist Bob Harrigan. Bob.
Thanks, Alan. Some big storms already moving through parts of the Suncoast. This is Punta Gorda webcam taking a look at what's been going on since 2 o'clock this afternoon. You can see showers increasing throughout the late afternoon. Some of that rain heavy at times, already up to 2 inches estimate from the Doppler radar site, and more on the way. Get a look at the radar. Just very active this evening, and that's a direct result of our tropical system, which is still a tropical depression off into the Gulf of Mexico, but it continues to pump moisture our way and will continue to do that through, it looks like, Friday morning. So a good deal of rainfall. The potential for flooding is pretty high right now for west central Florida, and I think we could see an excess of 10 inches of rainfall in some areas before it's all said and done. Yesterday we had up to 2 inches of rain, and then today 2 inches of rain. That's already 4 in just 2 days, and we've got a few more days left to go. And you can see it continues to gather strength and push to the north right now. Into Charlotte Harbor is where the heaviest rainfall has been, into Rotunda, Placida, heading toward Inglewood and Northport. Get ready for another downpour there. And Venice all the way up to near Osprey, showers, and mainly showers right now, not a lot of rough weather. Look at this over parts of US 19 and actually I-275, that rainfall moving off to the north and northwest. About an hour ago, it wasn't even there, and then it just kind of popped up and moved off toward the north there at around 15 to 20 miles an hour. We can expect periodic showers and a few isolated thunderstorms to develop overnight, and especially throughout the day on Wednesday and Thursday, tapering off somewhat on Friday. I mentioned that rainfall total already, just in some showers that moved through earlier. Punta Gorda over 2 inches, and near Northport over an inch and a half there just in the last couple of hours. Well, the biggest threat will be the rainfall over the next several days, 3 to 7 inches for most people. And as I mentioned, some isolated areas will see 10+ inches of rain before it's all said and done. There's also the possibility of isolated tornadoes, especially on Thursday as the system gets ready to make landfall up near the Big Bend area or possibly near the Panhandle. As far as the buoy data goes, you can see the waves starting to increase, and that's not good news for the West Coast. That means a lot of coastal erosion will be taking place, I think, as the wave action continues to grow over the upcoming 48 hours from the center of the system, which could become a hurricane. That's right. Some reliable forecast models that predict intensity are suggesting that this could become a Category 1 hurricane before it makes landfall late Thursday afternoon, just as it approaches the Panhandle of Florida. Well, here's the forecast cone of uncertainty, and although we're not in that cone, it doesn't mean that we're not going to see rough weather here. This just means where the center of the system will be in a few days from now as it heads off to the northeast, but most of the rough weather will be felt to the east of it and to the south. Right now, there are hurricane watches in effect, and that covers Pasco County northward all the way to Apalachicola. And then the area in yellow you see there, that's a tropical storm watch, and these will more than likely change over to warnings by, say, 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. Those will more than likely be switched over to hurricane warnings and tropical storm warnings for much of the west portion of the state. As a result of, it looks like, a tropical storm Hermine. Rainfall totals will be very high, especially here along west central Florida. The area in yellow you see, that's +4 inches, and that will be occurring mainly by Thursday afternoon, so keep that in mind. Currently at the airport, we have some clouds around 79 degrees, the dew point way up there at 74, and the humidity at 84%. Winds are out of the south-southeast at 10, the pressure 29.90 inches, and that is falling right now. The high today warmed to 89 degrees, and the low this morning was 77. We'll see mid-80s for highs throughout the day tomorrow. No rainfall to report officially at the airport. However, temperatures have cooled across the area. They're beginning rain here in the last hour or so at the airport. You can see all pretty much in the mid-70s where it's raining heavy, still into the low 80s where it's not. And we are anticipating, as I said, a good chance for showers and storms right on in through the next several days. That rain chance 80% for Wednesday and Thursday at 90%, and windy weather all the way through Friday. A little bit better for the weekend. We'll be right back after this.
It's time to upgrade your favorite news app. Now, ABC7's My Suncoast News app is better than ever with a dynamic brand new design that's faster and easier to use. Stay connected with new features that make it easy to submit photos, share stories on Facebook and Twitter, and save stories for reading at a later time. Download our free My Suncoast News app on your mobile device at your app store. ABC7's all-new My Suncoast News app. Just another way we're here for you.
Powered by the Eye Associates, providing sight for life.
You only have one life. Are you gambling with it? 1 in 3 adults have high blood pressure. Not knowing your numbers could cause you to lose, big time. Luckily, you can turn the odds in your favor by getting your blood pressure checked today. Don't leave your health to chance. Learn more at heart.org/HPV.
US Med has great news for anyone living with diabetes.
If you have Medicare, private insurance, or prescription drug coverage, US Med will ship a new glucose meter right to your home.
And shipping is free.
My new meter uses only a speck of blood, so it's less painful than my previous meter.
If you have Medicare, private insurance, or prescription drug coverage, you're covered with US Med. We're welcoming new patients, even if your current provider can't supply you anymore.
I don't even have to test on my fingers anymore. I can test on my hand or forearms, and it's more accurate than my old meter.
So call US Med today, and you'll have a choice of 2 great meters.
One that actually speaks your results, or a meter so small it fits on the bottle of strips.
Act now, and US Med will include a free prescription discount card. We'll also send you a free diabetes cookbook. This is your opportunity.
So call US Med today.
You'll be glad you did.
Welcome back, and we are speaking with our roundtable about tonight's primary. Let's continue on. There's also a very important ballot initiative, the amendment ballot initiative for the solar power amendment, and it looks like, at least locally, has about 75% at least in Sarasota County. Any predictions about what's going to happen statewide, Keith?
My guess is it's going to win. This is one of those things where there's not a whole lot of polling, at least not that I'm aware of. But generally, people support anything that sounds like it's pro-alternative energy. I think maybe more interesting is going to be to see what happens in the second initiative that sounds like it's pro-alternative energy, but many opponents of it believe is actually the opposite.
It confuses a lot of people because the mantra this week or in the last couple of weeks is vote yes on 4 and then in November vote no on 1. Yeah. And it becomes kind of a muddle mess. Christian, we're rounding up our coverage here, so any final thoughts in terms of what you're seeing so far in terms of the results?
No, I mean, we still need to wait on this state Senate race. Obviously, we're looking at Joe's race, Joe Gruder's race in the State House. That'll be interesting to see with the Manatee results coming in. But, I think a lot of it was somewhat expected on the Republican side at least. And, this is one of those things, it's like primaries are really battles between families. And, you want to do them.
I'd hate to be a member of that family.
Yeah,
because,
it's the truth. I mean, but really the battles that you have with your family are sometimes bigger than any battles that you have with anyone else, right? But when you look at this, we're ready to kind of get over with it. And starting tomorrow, the Republican Party will unify. And that's when we turn our eye towards the presidential and we turn our eye towards making sure that all of our local candidates win. So I know we're all excited to move forward.
Rita, any surprises?
Local bloodbaths are really hard to recover from, as we know, on a local level. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity this presidential year with the Republicans going through this ugly state Senate race. And we're going to see how we can make hay of all of that.
Well, I mean, I'm interested in terms of what impact the presidential race will have, if any, on these local races.
We don't know, but it's going to, I think the big thing we're all in the dark about is turnout. There are arguments that could be made that Trump might increase some turnout. I think it may actually decrease it a little bit, but that's where you have the down ballot effect. And I've been down ballot. You're sort of at the whim of the winds when you're down the ballot, because those turnout differences can make a difference in a close election.
Well, let me ask you all this question, because the Republican Party has been boasting about the fact that they have really had more voters register as Republicans in the last couple of months than the Democrats have. But there was also a story that came out in Politico the other day that many of those voters were actually former Democrats who simply have not voted Democrat in recent elections.
That is some of it, but I think when you look at Donald Trump, I mean, he's motivated a lot of people to switch their party. I personally know about half a dozen people that live in my area that have switched their party registration and become Republicans. So he's mobilizing people, but when you look at that, 10 counties have flipped from being a majority Democrat to a majority Republican.
Rita, I'll give you the last word.
Here in Florida, we've seen that we Democrats have the majority of voter registration, and that's because we've seen so much minority influence in the elections during presidential years, and they register as Democrats.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming here tonight. It's been very exciting, and we'll be back in a moment with news headlines and an update on the election. We'll be back in a moment.
Tomorrow at 4 on Suncoast View.
Do you know how to save a life? I'm Stephanie Roberts. On Suncoast View, we learn about hands-only CPR with the American Heart Association, all to get ready for their annual Suncoast Heart Walk. Our development expert is back with the scoop on a new Whole Foods battle, plus bayfront and beach access concerns, plus pregnancy product must-haves, and Chef Judy has the best pasta dishes on the Suncoast.
Tomorrow at 4 on Suncoast View.
On your TV. On your computer, on your camera, on your smartphone, on your Apple Watch. And now you can get ABC7, your Suncoast News on Fire TV. Just go to mysuncoast.com and click on the mobile tab for a list of fast and free downloads that deliver ABC7, your Suncoast News on the go.
A message from the Pulaski Law Firm. For decades, many Americans working in the trades were exposed to environmental hazards without their knowledge. While the dangers of one such airborne threat, asbestos, have long been known, efforts were made to hide the risks from the public. The result? Thousands of cases of asbestos-induced mesothelioma. Those in the trades may have been harmed by hundreds of companies who produced asbestos-laden products. The U.S. Bankruptcy Court has established asbestos trusts with $30 billion in initial funding. You may be entitled to financial compensation without ever going to court. If you or someone you know has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, get the best care available. Then call us.
Call 800-279-1837.
For nearly 2 decades, we've been fighting for those harmed by asbestos. Act now. Call for a free consultation and see how we can help. Mesothelioma. Don't fight it alone.
Attention breast cancer survivors. If you experience permanent hair loss or baldness after chemotherapy, you may qualify for a cash award. Thousands of women suffering breast cancer were given a chemotherapy drug without being warned about the possibility of irreversible alopecia. If you or a loved one suffered permanent hair loss after chemotherapy, call 888-622-8732. Time to file a claim is limited. 888-622-8732. That's 888-622-8732.
Both the Republican and Democratic vice presidential nominees are making their way to Florida this week. Republican Mike Pence will hold a town hall at the Hyatt Regency in Sarasota tomorrow afternoon. The doors will open at 1 and the event starts at 4. Meanwhile, Democratic VP candidate Tim Kaine is stumping across the Sunshine State. He will make stops in Pensacola, Panama City, and Jacksonville this Thursday and Friday. The Virginia senator campaigned last week in Tallahassee and in South Florida. The FBI could publicly release the report it sent to the Justice Department about Hillary Clinton's private email server as soon as tomorrow. The agency will also release notes of its interview with Clinton. Additional notes of interviews involving Clinton aides or other investigative materials that were sent to Congress are not being released yet. The Clinton campaign says it welcomes the move in the name of transparency. Promising new research is out tonight in the fight against the Zika virus. Scientists say that 3 existing drugs could be useful in counteracting the effects of the virus. They are medications currently used for treating cancer, hepatitis C, and parasitic infections. Experiments are limited to labs right now, but tests on the drug can reverse some of the damaging effects. Tests will be done on animals before human trials can begin. And finally, ABC7 will continue to track the primary results as they come in tonight. Polls closed at the top of the hour, but the totals are still being counted. Make sure to turn in to our 11 o'clock news and we'll have the latest information or see the latest results on our website at mysuncoast.com/elections. And that is all the time we have for this evening. Be sure to join us tomorrow night as we look ahead to November and break down the results of today's primary election. I'm Alan Cohn. Thanks for joining us. Have a good night.